Hi, it's Gadget UK here again. Something for the 3000, 4000 here, I think. Assuming the 3000 Zorro 3, I think it is, because it's got a buster. I say buster, super buster. This came from Andy T. It's a wee bit dusty. It's been sat around for a few weeks for me to look at, so it needs a bit of a clean. There's a hair there. I've got the wrist strap on. It's a Mediator from L-Box. Mediator PCI. 4000D. Oh yeah, so it is for the 4000 i3. Nicely assembled. So you got a replacement daughter board, you know, the back plane there that gives you Zorro slots. Well, this one's got PCI slots instead of ISA slots, and it also comes with this, the Mediator PCI here, Mark III. So we've got a load of Macs on here, like, you know, CPLDs basically, Mac 210s, Mac 210A. Yeah, a bunch of 210s and 210As. All socketed, it's quite nice. And you've got jumpers up here for master and win size, whatever that is, window size presumably. And there's one here for snap config. Sorry, swap config, not snap. And yeah, it's a bit dusty again. It's obviously come straight out of its machine. And he wants me to just upgrade the regulator now. I've got a regulator in advance. The one thing I did notice here, and the one that's on there, let me just have a look. It's an LM at 1085 3.3 volts. But the one he wanted me to fit, which I ordered, is the 8.4. It's got twice as much current capability. So he just wants me to simply swap that out, and then he can see whether it solves any stability issues he's got. Because he thinks his 3.3 volts is being pulled a little bit low, you know, on the side here, because that's what this is going to be used for. PCI is going to be, you know, wanting to use 3.3 volts. And I could even argue that any kind of regulator like that, it's not really going to be up to the job, because, well, maybe 3.3 it would be, because it's just logic. But if you filled the cards here, you know, put a load of PCI cards in, yeah, you could be pulling the voltage a little bit low there and stressing the regulator out. That's the thing. So anyway, the way this works, well, I assume this has obviously got to be a bridge between the Zorro side and the PCI. It's got to be the bottom slot, because if I position this into the next one up, you can see it doesn't align with the slot, doesn't align with the PCI slot, doesn't align with the PCI slot. So it's got to go that way. There's no other way you can have it. So my guess is it's going to go in like that, and then that goes into your motherboard. And then I'm not sure what happens here, some magic. I don't know whether, I've seen screenshots on some people's setups where you hold both mouse buttons down and you can see not only the Zorro side of things, you know, auto config, but you can see how many PCI cards are in. But I think the first thing I'm going to do is just connect this all up, plug it into my 4000 and just measure the voltage up here to make sure we have 3.3 volts, and make sure my machine boots with this in. That's probably a good sense check. So if I move these out of the way, and we get the 4000 on the bench here that we fixed in the previous 3 or 4 part series. There'll be another video coming up on this soon. The 4000 that I got in my cased 4000, and yeah, we fixed this last year I think, and it was actually done some of it the year before as well. It took ages to fix, but it's been solid. It has been solid, and you can see, you know, extensive repairs all around that area. Bit of UV solder mask there, and some up here. I could get some down here, but there was a bit there where we had a port fix on. Anyway, the link to that video will be top right. Let me get the ATX power supply out stuff and connect this up. Right, so all connected up. I've got an 030 in there. That's the one that I fitted an MMU to. Video link will be top right for that. So let's get the wrist strap back on. Switch it on. Yeah, we're getting RGB, and we've got a purple screen, which is a bit strange, isn't it? Is it because we had no bridge board connected? And we're getting really fuzzy video there, look. Let's just see if it throws the sticker disc screen. There's no reason why that shouldn't work. Yeah, there we go. So let's connect this up, minus the PCI adapter. It's going to go this way, and just make sure it boots. We can measure the voltage here now, probably. Finger press that. Stone cold. Yeah, let's get the multimeter out. So I'm going to measure from ground here, measure the tab, because that should be 3.3 I think. Yeah, 3.3 volts. You can see that, 3.3 volts. So voltage is alright, and again it's booted okay. These jumpers here could be a problem, couldn't they, on a 4000? You know, it's like, I'm not happy about that. I've got to stick this under there. I'm not happy about those jumpers underneath that. You could make a connection to something there. Anyway, that's now in. Let's switch that on. And again, we've got the sticker disc in screen, so I'm going to hold both buttons down on the mouse, assuming I've got the mouse port here. Switch it back on. Try and get access to the early boot menu and see if anything is reported at all. Yeah, it does take ages without a hard disk, doesn't it? I should connect a hard disk up and then we won't have this long delay. Oh, I've got an ID terminator, I might use that in a minute. Yeah, so it's detecting it. Yeah, my recollections of PCI things showing up somewhere. I think that's a different thing you've got to do. It might be some software that displays that. So I'm not going to be testing this at all, because I don't have the knowledge, experience and stuff, and the software and all the rest of it, and the time to be able to install all the drivers required for this, and PCI drivers depending on what card. I haven't got any PCI cards to test it with, so it just makes no sense to do much more other than look at this and maybe talk about what capabilities it offers, and I can do that. And swap out that regulator. That's the key thing here, really. Switch it off. So, yeah, it boots, it detects this as a Zorro device, and that's all we're interested in, really. And we've got 3.3 volts. So, yeah, I can put that out of the way a sec. Get the 4000 off the bench, and let's focus on swapping that regulator. And, yeah, I need to get this off, don't I? I think the easy way to do that is with a bit of flux and braid, to be honest. So I'm going to start with these connections down here. We'll get some flux on those. Hot air might be something people may consider, but well, you've got lots of plasticky things and stuff around here. It's probably going to be easier just to use some braid, I think. I'll show you on the microscope. Let's do this on the microscope. Not that we need high level of magnification, but just allows me to share this with you, really, and you can see the result really quite quickly. So, right, let's heat it up. Now I've got to be carefully and mindful that I'm right next to PCI slots and stuff, so I tell you what, let's rotate that round sideways, so I have to do it the other way. Yeah, round and round and round we go. Hang on, where are we? Yeah, round and round and round we went there. Just so that I'm nowhere near any PCI slots or Zorro slots. And yeah, we'll start by just trying to absorb solder here, I think. May need to go up in temperature capability of the iron. There you go, see, that's not done too bad, is it? Let's do these ones. Cutting the braid back would be a good idea, I think, in a minute, because we've absorbed quite a bit of solder there now. It seems a bit silly, really, that he's had to pay the shipping to send this all the way here, when in reality this should be a really straightforward thing. I'm sure he could have done it himself. It's about risk, though, isn't it? If you're uncomfortable doing something, getting someone who's a bit more confident to do it is a good idea. I'm struggling to see what I'm doing here. Let's give that a go. You can see some of the solder get absorbed from that middle pin there then when we did that. And this is the thing about cutting your braid back. The capillary action, obviously, you know, it absorbs the solder via the, you know, the flux assists there and it going up the braid, but you can see how much freer that second pin is after doing this one here, and it just overlapped a bit. Yeah, the flux is the key, really. That makes it much easier to do. Yeah, I think we got most of that off there. So there are a few things you could do with something like this. You could, in theory, use tweezers or something to try and I haven't got much space here to clear us to do this, to get under a pin like that, and you can heat and then try and I guess I'll lift when you get to temperature, but see it moving. Yeah. It's kind of lifting a little bit, that one. Let's try this one. Yeah, you can see that's lifted quite nicely. Using the first pin in order to lever the second pin. And let's try this one. A nice easy way to do that. I could then just come in with a bit more braid here, if I can get that braid in the right place. Just on the off chance there's something underneath the back end of that holding it on. And try and do the same down here. What I'll probably do now is use the middle pin to act as a lever for this one, if you see what I mean. Like that. So I feel fairly confident that those three pins are lifted there where they should be. And if we find the tab. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know whether this is being designed this way to have the short tab at the back and the legs folded the way they are. We're going to have to form our replacement regulator the same way. And I'm going to have to cut most of the tab off. I'll try and cut it the same way with a couple of little nips there and get it the same thickness. And then bend the pins the same way that we need here. So again, bring in the braid and the iron. This is where I may need a higher temperature. Yeah, definitely need a higher temperature. It's like I'm attaching it to the thing, look. Let's just go up in temperature here. Yeah, so gone up by 30 degrees. I'm just rotating that away because I'm a bit near on the right side there to the PCI slot, whereas now I'm sort of approaching from the opposite angle. Yeah, so about 30 degrees more here now. And it may take a few attempts to achieve this. Yeah, we've done it, look. Let's move it out of the way. There we go. It's actually on the braid. Pull the braid out of the way. Came off easier than I thought that. So we can now just use the braid. Yeah, and you can see it just became attached to that at that point. Let's just try and heat that so it falls off. Hang on, okay. Yeah, the other way up. Oh, there you go, it's fell off. Yeah, and you can see from there now what I need to try and do. Let's put that braid back, just make it a bit easier to absorb, get a wee bit more flux there. That should do. Have we tinned something up there? I think I might have just rubbed the end of that because I can see a bit of copper there. Just on that very edge, it's like, yeah, copper. Right. Anyway, let's go back to the microscope. Yeah, you can see what I mean there. You can see that. I don't know whether I just rubbed that. Anyway, we can tin over that in a sec. And obviously, we'll just give these another go, even though they've pretty much had a go. That'll do, I think. And I can now clean up. Yeah, I've been putting this off for far too long, this simple job. But, well, I was a bit nervous about it. Even I don't like doing things like this. You know, it's an expensive board, this. And even though it's a simple process, it doesn't mean it's, you know, risk-free. I mean, you can see there, we had a little incident already. I don't even know how that happened. I seem to just rub past it with the iron or something and lost some solder mask. I've got some black solder mask paint, so we'll paint that in a minute. And of course we'll clean this again once we've got the new component on. And the way I would test this is measure the voltage before we even stick that little bridge board in the bottom. I'm not even going to test it with the bridge board on the bottom. I don't see any point in doing that. I mean, I could do just to make sure the 3.3 volts still alright, but I don't think those CPLDs are going to be, you know, the GALs, whatever they are, max. They're not going to be using the 3.3 volts, I'm sure. It's purely for the PCI. Yeah, so what I need to do now is find the other one, here it is, and shape this the same way as that one. And this is the bit I don't like. It's like bodging with gadge. I'm sure you could order one of those that's exactly like that, but maybe not. Maybe it has been modified by someone. you know, what we need to do effectively is like cut this tab right off like that and get the height of it exactly the same. I'm going to do this under magnification, I think. And of course there's this issue that if you were to, you know, stress this out, you could actually damage the device. I think what I'm going to have to do is cut through this. I'm kind of tempted to saw through it with something. Yeah, I'm recording this bit anyway. It just seems crazy to me what I'm doing here. It's going to be incredibly hard to do this. Yeah, so some serious bodging going on here. I scored it on both sides here. And yeah, I'm using a hacksaw, and I've got halfway through one side, halfway through the other. The line is perfectly straight. This is not the way to do it. I've ordered some more of these as well that are got the right tab on them and the right folds on the pins. But I'm sure I can do this way. You would never know, because the line is perfectly straight, and I've taken so long. And just doing this very careful here, not to stress the device out. Yeah, last bit now is like 0.5 millimetre. I'm just wobbling it here. I can use the grinder on the edge of this. There we go. I've finally done it. That was an absolute nightmare. Yeah, I'll just use the grinder here just to smooth the end of it off. Yep, and there we go. That's formed. That's okay. So, all being well, it should work. There's no reason why it shouldn't. It's definitely the right part. It's a 5 amp 3.3 volt regulator. So let's try and position that there. Yeah, so cleaned up the toothbrush and IPA. You can see that looks alright. You'd have no clue that that's been modified. Right, let's get it back into the 4000 and try it. It needs more cleaning yet. And let's see if we've got 3.3 volts. I'm going to put my fingers on top of this just to make sure it doesn't go nuclear. Yeah, stone cold. So the Amiga's booting. Let's just measure it on here now. I'll just support that on there like that. Shouldn't really lean things on there because it's at an angle. 4 volts. I've got a problem. Switch it off. Yeah, so it's not getting hot. I don't believe it's faulty. We're not getting a short, I don't think. Let's just check these things here. We've got a low resistance between two of the pins there. But, well, this, unless it has failed. Yeah, there's no chance of there's no solder bridge or anything there. I've ordered some replacement ones. I think rather than just send this back, I can take that back off. Yes, I've spent 10 or 20 minutes messing around with the thing, but I'm not happy. 4 volts is not right. Now, bear in mind it's rated for 5 amp. You know, it'll provide 5 amp. Nevertheless, I wonder if the dash ADJ means it's adjustable and you need some component on there. I'll go and look at the data sheet for that, just to see if there's anything specific I need to do to tie it to 3.3 or a bit higher, 3.4 maybe, and maybe we can adjust it. You know, maybe I can get a resistor on there or something to deal with that. But I've ordered some other ones anyway, and well, we'll just see where we end up. Are we going to have to swap it again or not, or are we going to have to fit the original one back on? Because that might be a thing. Yeah, we might need to fit this back on. And while I think ahead, I'm going to straighten those pins now, the ones we just gently levered them upwards. I'm just going to flatten them all back down again, just in the off chance that we end up having to put that back on. Andy asked, can you do this? I'm a bit nervous, I'd like to increase it to 5 amps, and he told me the part number. Could you stick a 1084 on there? I'm like, yeah, I don't see why not, but maybe it needs some of the passives or something there, or at least one, to get it to regulate properly. I don't know. That's what I'm not sure about. I kind of went into this a bit blindly. I wish it's one of these things I wish I'd not sort of said, yeah, I'll have a look at it. And here I am again, taking it back off. Now, in theory, I could modify this. 2 resistors required to tweak this particular variant with the ADJ marking. And you know what? I should have followed my instincts. As soon as I saw that ADJ, I'm like, I think that's adjustable. I think I'm going to have a problem with it. And lo and behold, here we are, taking it off. So I could fit a couple of resistors on there, one of them a variable one, and tweak the voltage to get the voltage right. I don't like that. I mean, I could do some fixed ones, but I think I'm just going to take it off. It's not going to take much effort to do that, and I've ordered some other ones that are fixed ones. Right, that's it off there, just the same way, let's say we took it off before. No damage or anything, no more solder mask removed or anything like that. Quite surprised at how easy that was to get off, to be honest. Right, so here we are, a bit later. Components have arrived in a non-ESD safe bag, which is crazy. And this was in the bag as well, so it's like, what? Why would you provide an ESD safe bag but then ship them in this? It's just crazy. Anyway, I'm sure it'll be okay. Let's just try and lob them out. Yeah, I think they're the same brand as the one we took off. I could be wrong. Anyway, everything's right here. The tab's right, the pins are right, the length of them, and the part number. It's not the adjustable one, so fingers crossed this should be dead straightforward. Please God, let this be 3.3 volts. It looks a bit fluxy there, doesn't it? Yeah, just pointing you down like that, and it's going to toothbrush around it. Yeah, so I sort of press it down and around like that, just so I don't get flux and APA kind of all over the place here, and a bit of toothbrush, really, like that. That's it. That's looking pretty darn clean, I think. So the only other thing I'm going to do is get a bit of black UV solveness paint there, and there, and there. It's and there. It's from where it's been knocked around a bit, I think, in the case originally. I don't think that's something I've done. I may have done that. I don't know. That's solder coated now, isn't it? But there are 2 or 3 little bits there that just need a little bit of black UV solveness paint. I'm going to strap it back on again, and let's get this in. And we're going to measure, and I'm going to put fingers on that and just switch it on. Right, machine's booting. Stone cold, as you'd imagine it would be. Switch it off. Let's now connect that to a ground over here on the power supply, and just have a measure on top of there. Switch it back on. There we go, 3.42. That's fine. Bear in mind, this provides up to 5 amps, so that's kind of what I'd expect for a 3.3 regulator that's not loaded. There's no load on it whatsoever on this PCB at the moment. I'm just holding it there for a period of time, just to make sure it doesn't do anything crazy, but, well, no, I wouldn't imagine it would be a problem there. I think that's it, all done. And the Amiga's booted up okay. I mean, if there was a problem with that wouldn't cause the Amiga any problems anyway, because all this is doing, and it's still stone cold, is providing a 3.3 volt supply to the PCI slots here. That is it. There's nothing else that does. Anyway, hopefully that'll be a bit more stable for Andy's, as I said, Zorro, Andy's PCI cards. I can't test it, as I say, because, well, I haven't got the time and inclination to want to go through all of the setting up of the software and stuff, drivers, and, you know, on a setup, you know, on dedicated compact flash card, and etc, etc. So I don't know. Watch this space in future. Maybe I'll get something like this myself. But do you know what? It doesn't really interest me, PCI, in this family of computers. What I mean is, for an Amiga, it's like you want your Zorro slots where you've got 1, 2, 3, 4. When you stick the bridge in, which you need to bridge across to the PCI side, you only end up with 3 Zorro slots, and that for me is why I'm not bothered. The 2000 is my favourite of the boxed, you know, the big box Amigas, because you've got so many bleeding Zorro slots in there. Yeah, I'm sure some of the tower ones might be a bit better, or equal to maybe the 2000, in that you haven't got quite as many, you know, a limitation on slots. But on a 4000 where you've got limited height in terms of the case, unless you get one of those third-party things that extends and adds a load more Zorro slots or CPU, not Zorro slots, yeah, Zorro slots, or in this case PCI slots on the top half of your extra case. Fair enough, it makes sense there. A high tower, I think they're called, aren't they? But for a standard motherboard like this, but you don't gain anything other than be able to put PCI cards, put PCI cards in there rather than Zorro. And you can argue that does give you a lot more expandability. The fact that we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 PCI slots here as well as our Zorro, because then you can have 7 things in here effectively, provided the cards are not too long. In other words, the cards here are not full length that interfere with here. If you've got short, and then short PCI ones, most PCI ones were short, then yeah, you can fit quite a lot in there. So it is a bit of an upgrade, but I think for the cost and stuff, it's not a road I would want to go down with my Amiga. If I was a millionaire, yeah, I would have to get a load of nice PCI cards. But you see, the thing is, the PCI cards you'd want to fit in this, they're going to cost you a fair bit as well, because, well, the obvious one's Voodoo 3. Now, I had one of those that went in the bin, I'm sorry to say. It was like 7 or 8 years ago, my child. I cleared out the loft and I was like, what's this card marked STB? And I'll put that in the bin. That looks like a clone of some sort. Turns out STB was the Diamond Monster or whatever it was, a Voodoo 3. Yep, went in the bin. I'm sure it got crushed up by the bin men. So yeah, I was gutted about that. It's still to this day it bothers me, the fact that happened. Very few things like that have happened in my life, but that was one of them where, yeah, it's kind of left me traumatised a bit. I haven't got over the trauma of the loss of my Voodoo 3 card. These PCI slots are so dusty. Right, so my mechanic UV light has arrived, which I needed to replace the failing torch. There'll be a separate video on that on the extra channel. It's not particularly exciting, but well, it's just something I wanted to do. Here we go. Just get some of this black UV solder mask paint, a tiny, oh my god, I was going to say a tiny little bit, there we go, just on the end. And just get it over this edge here. I'm going to use magnifier here. And just get it over there like that. Get a little bit there. And a little bit over the right side you can't see. And get this thing onto the job. Switch it on, get it over there. We'll do that one first, I think. I'm just trying to sit this on the bench at the right angle. I'll do the same thing obviously on the other 2 little bits there, but just leave that for a minute. So if you made it through that video, you deserve an award. Because at the end of the day, all we're doing is swapping out a regulator. It's crazy how long it took me. So Andy received it back, and his 800MHz G3 PowerPC is working for the first time in some time. I think it's stable. So it did solve his problems. And with permission from Andy, I've just shown a short clip here of Half-Life. That's a new port for the Amiga that's working on his PPC setup. G4, I think in this case here, so we must have a few different PPCs. 256 meg, 450 MHz, known colloquially, as Andy says, as the Apocalypse. And for the PCI graphics card, he's using a Radeon, but he says it should work on the Voodoo as well. Thanks ever so much for letting me share that, Andy. So I mean, that was Andy's idea to upgrade to the 5 amp regulator, so yeah, there you go. You can give Andy some respect down below for that. It's a mod that you may want to consider doing to your Mediator if you've got one. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, please see the Ko-fi and Patreon links down below. Don't forget to check out the main channel because we've got about 800 videos there. I'll catch you in the next video.